Content on the topic Ranikhet disease. Etiology and pathogenesis of Newcastle disease in poultry. Newcastle disease virus, synonymous with avian paramyxovirus type 1, APMV1, is an RNA virus, and the most important of the 22 known APMV serotypes are pathogens for poultry. The virus infects susceptible birds through the respiratory or digestive tract, and they inhale contaminated dust or aerosolized virus or ingest contaminated materials. In field outbreaks, the incubation period varies from 4 to 6 days, however, clinical signs may appear as early as 2 days and as late as 15 days post-infection. Epidemiology of Newcastle disease in poultry. Virulent Newcastle disease strains are endemic in poultry in most of Asia, Africa, Mexico, and some countries of South America. Newcastle disease virus strains of low virulence are prevalent in free-living wild birds, live bird markets, and poultry, especially waterfowl. Infection of domestic poultry with naturally circulating low NDV can contribute to respiratory distress in young naive birds and lower productivity in adult birds. Transmission of Newcastle disease in poultry. Infected birds shed virus in exhaled air, respiratory discharge, and feces. Virus is shed during the incubation period, during the clinical stage, and for a varying but limited period during convalescence. Chickens are readily infected by aerosols and by ingesting contaminated water or food. Infected chickens and other domestic and wild birds may be sources of NDV. Clinical signs of Newcastle disease in poultry. There are no pathognomonic clinical signs for Newcastle disease. Observed clinical signs depend on whether the infecting virus has a predilection for respiratory and digestive systems, viscerotropic, or nervous systems, neurotropic. Clinical signs of infection with viscerotropic velogenic NDV, lethargy, inappetence, respiratory distress. Sometimes birds make a whistling sound, clear mucus discharge from the mouth, prostration, sudden death, sometimes the only finding, up to 100% morbidity and mortality, especially in naive populations. Clinical signs of infection with neurotropic velogenic NDV, respiratory distress with sneezing, coughing, and nasal discharge, tremors and convulsions, paralysis of wings and legs, torticollis, circling with clonic spasms, complete paralysis, up to 100% morbidity and 50% mortality, up to 90% in young birds. Prevention of Newcastle disease in poultry. No medication has been shown to impact the course of virulent Newcastle disease virus infection, and treatment with antivirals is not recommended. Prevention of Newcastle disease is achieved through biosecurity and vaccination. Vaccination. Vaccines are available for chickens, turkeys, and pigeons. Unfortunately, ND vaccines do not provide sterile immunity. While there is an increasing number of reports of Newcastle disease outbreaks in vaccinated poultry, approved vaccines prevent clinical signs of disease under experimental conditions. Biosecurity. Practicing strict biosecurity and implementing strategies to prevent introduction, or transmission, of VNDV into poultry premises are efficient preventive and intervention measures. Routine disinfection procedures, feed and water quality, and pest and litter management should be properly controlled. Many countries practice outbreak containment by culling infected and susceptible birds in a controlled zone to prevent further transmission of disease. Respective authorities should be immediately notified in case of a suspected VNDV infection. Zoonotic risk of Newcastle disease in poultry. All Newcastle disease virus strains can produce a transitory conjunctivitis in humans. However, the condition has been limited primarily to laboratory workers and vaccination teams exposed to large quantities of virus. Before poultry vaccination was widely practiced, conjunctivitis from NDV infection occurred in crews eviscerating poultry in processing plants. The disease has not been reported in people who rear poultry or consume poultry products. Thank you.